Hello. So the last video I did was on my top 10 favorite video games, which I said was a something I've been thinking of doing on my blog, but I just hadn't got around to, and I thought it would fit quite well into a video format for this channel. And so right now I'm doing something else, which I'm basically thinking along the same lines, and that's rewatching my top 10 favorite movies of all time, and talking about them all one by one, and deciding and going over just what I really love about them. My top 10 has shifted quite a lot over the years. It's gone back and forth, but I think right now I have quite a solid idea of what my favourites are. So I'm going to begin today by talking about my 10th favourite film of all time, which is Spider Man 2. It kind of stands to reason I should have a comic book film, a superhero film on this list, because that is basically one of my favourite genres of film overall. I never do get tired of watching superhero films. If they're done right, they have great action. You can have great stories and great emotional drama as you go into these particular characters, what makes them tick. And I think it's a great form of escapism to go into worlds where there are people who can do these amazing things. And Spider Man 2, I've always thought, is basically the perfect superhero movie. I mean, it's got brilliant action, great acting and casting. The main characters go on these really interesting journeys. It's cheesy, but not too cheesy. I mean, because superhero movies are inherently fantastical, you want them to take themselves seriously, but not too seriously. I mean, Spider-Man 2 is actually one of the few films I actually went to see twice at the cinema. That's not something I usually do, but I just like Spider-Man 2 so much I did that. So right from the beginning, everything's introduced quite succinctly, and you know where everybody's at since the events of the first film. You see the struggles that Peter is going through in his life, and you see where he's at with Mary Jane. You see his friendship with Harry and Harry's quest for vengeance against Spider-Man. I like how throughout the story of the film you get these moments that you might not necessarily be expecting, or maybe look like they're going to be cliche and then don't turn out that way. Like in the first action scene, Spider-Man's life is basically saved because Aunt May whacks Doctor Octopus in the head, which isn't something you normally expect to see. And then later on in the train scene, when Doc Ock has come along looking for Spider-Man, this big crowd of people is like, "You want to get to him? You're going to go through us." And instead of being put off by this, Doc Ock is just like, "Very well," and pushes them aside like it's nothing. It's quite interesting how the film has a long period where there is no Spider-Man, and yet doesn't suffer for that because it's all part of the story and the emotional drama that Peter has to go through, and he goes through a lot of stuff in the meantime. So it's certainly no less interesting just because he's not in the Spider-Man costume. I liked a lot how his relationship with Mary Jane progresses through the film, and I like how it turns out. I was very pleased when first watching it in the film that she does find out he's Spider-Man, and then the film is able to end on this happy note and this quite honest note for both of them. I even quite like that bit where Mary Jane goes running through the park in her wedding dress with a big smile on her face. It is one of those films where I want to say something about every scene, basically. Tobey Maguire obviously has a great performance as Peter Parker, who goes through his really brilliant character journey through the film. I mean, the film makes it very clear early on that being Spider-Man is just really wrecking his life. I mean, he can't hold down a job, he's struggling at school, it's not just that he can't be with Mary Jane, his social life in general is suffering for it. And yet he's ploughing on with it because he feels obligated. He has this responsibility to use his powers to help people. And then we get this interesting device where he starts losing his powers because psychologically he's stopped wanting them. And this is giving him a possible excuse to stop, to say no, because he can't really otherwise. He feels obligated. He's basically trapped by this responsibility, but there's no great responsibility if he doesn't have any great power. And so we see him thinking about his motivation and the idea that maybe he's losing his powers because he's not meant to be Spider-Man. And when he finally decides not to be Spider-Man anymore, it's clearly a hard decision for him to make still. And immediately after he's thrown his Spider-Man suit in the bin, we get this quite cheesy raindrops keep falling on my head scene. We just see him wandering around in the sunshine, enjoying his normal life and seeing the benefits of this decision he's made. But of course, circumstances force him to start thinking about whether he did do the right thing. I like how he goes straight from this scene where he's seeing a guy being mugged and not doing anything about it, obviously feeling guilty, and we go straight from there to Uncle Ben's grave, which of course is very tightly linked to his sense of responsibility. Eventually, he does reach a point where he does actually want to be Spider-Man again, and then after he's made his big comeback and had this fight scene with Doc Ock, we get to see the reward of that, as he gets helped by the crowd of people on the train that he's rescued, and they promise not to tell anyone that they've seen his face and say it's good to have him back, and get to see the positive side of being a hero again. And Dr. Octopus is a great character as well. He's this really great villain. I like how he starts off as this quite likeable man with a good sense of humour, and then we see him coming under this quite subtle mind control of his artificially intelligent arms. He's given this quite simple motivation that he wants to rebuild his fusion reactor, and the arms are telling him to do it, and I suppose it kind of works because deep down he wants to do that himself, even though it failed the first time. And it's that motivation that leads him into conflict with Spider-Man in a number of different ways and gives quite a few opportunities for action. I mean, so first off, Octavius needs money to get the parts for his machine. He goes and robs a bank where Spider-Man just happens to be. Spider-Man tries to stop him, and we get fight scene number 1. Octavius needs fuel for his reactor, so he goes to see Harry Osborn. Harry tells him, "I'll give it to you if you can capture Spider-Man for me," and we get fight scene number 2. And then finally, Octavius switches on his reactor. He's threatening the entire city. Spider-Man has to stop him. We get fight scene number 3. And Doc Ock, as well as being this good character, is this very visually interesting villain. I mean, I really like the design of his arms and how even when he first switches them on and is showing them to his audience, they have this kind of living quality to them. They look like they're looking at you. And he gets used to full effect in his fight scenes. I mean, when he and Spider-Man are tussling with each other, it's like no two attacks are exactly the same. But even besides the fights with the main villain, there's lots of opportunities for action. Just Spider-Man stopping criminals on the street, or the scene where he rescues a child from a burning building when he doesn't even have his powers. As well as that, besides all the emotional stuff, it's also a very funny movie. You get J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson providing a lot of the good comic relief, like, "Your wife says she's lost her checkbook. Thanks for the good news." And then this incredibly awkward elevator scene where Spider-Man's talking about how his costume rides up in the crotch. Like what I said about this movie taking itself seriously, but not too seriously, because it's a comic book film. So yeah, that is basically the stuff I love about Spider-Man 2, my 10th favourite film. I'm going to be continuing this list, so look out for that, and nothing else to say except pizza time.